Good afternoon, Rotary fellow Flint. I'm starting off the new year with ringing ears, apparently. So everybody, if you weren't awake before, we certainly are now. It is terrific to have you all here today. Thanks so much for being here for our very first meeting of the new year. So I hope you have your 12 drummers drumming, because today is also Epiphany, known as the 12th day of Christmas, right? And it's also National Shortbread Day and National Take a Poet to Lunch Day. So bear that in mind. And I will say also for me, January 6th now is a day that carries a different significance than it did a few years ago. So today we have our club elections, and I'm not expecting anybody to storm the podium. All right. But with that, with the spirit of election, so today is actually our first regular club meeting since the city.
I'm in a Zoom meeting right now. Yeah.
All right, I'm going to ask folks on Zoom to mute. And so we actually have, this is our first meeting since the city's elections were certified. We have today joining us as a special guest, the mayor of the city of Flint. So we'll have a chance to hear a couple of words from him later, as well as our feature presentation from our very own Judge Duncan Beagle. So before we get underway with that, though, let us proceed the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. And as Rotarians, we seek to live by the four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. Is it the truth? Thank you. And we will be having an inspirational message from Rob Jewell.
No, I'm not reading the whole book. Just half of it. 2 parts. Prelude to start with. Time. Our words, our actions, our behavior, our intent. The responsibility of influence and of leadership. Today, January 6th. 82 years ago, amidst the struggles facing democracies across the world, a president in his State of the Union address sounded the clarion for freedom of speech, of worship, from want, from fear, the 4 freedoms. 20 years ago this week, this Rotarian president, with thousands of other Rotarian presidents in over 200 countries, sounded the clarion of the theme, sow the seeds of love. 2 years ago, a United States president sounded the clarion to challenge and disrupt the process of democracy and our republic. Each day, we face a peculiar problem. We must validate our past, face our present, and plan for the future. Those who believe that life was better in the old days sometimes are blind to the reality of the present. Those who live only for the present frequently have little regard for other precedent or consequence. And those who live only for some deferred reward or strain themselves with too much denial. Thinking of the past, the present, and the future is useful, but they must appropriately be balanced and joined. We must understand how the past affects us. We should keep the present full of rich and satisfying experiences, and we should devote energy each day to building for the future. Imagine our words, our actions, our behavior, our intent our responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rob. Please enjoy your lunch and we'll reconvene shortly. You are, of course, welcome and encouraged to continue your meal. We do have a rather full agenda ahead of us today, so I want to go ahead and get started. And with that, we have a few announcements to share with you. One is that hopefully when you came in today, you saw the ballot and had a chance to vote in that election. And I can report that the ballots have been collected and tallied and the slate has been elected. So congratulations to all of the board of directors that will be taking office as of this coming July the 1st. We'll be glad to welcome our new members. I also would like to share a reminder in terms of our upcoming district conference. Mike Chafee would probably have a thing or two to say further about it in coming meetings. But George Ananick has been helping to convene a planning committee that includes folks not just from our club, but throughout the district. But certainly our club, as the host club, is going to play a significant role with that. And so please, I hope that as many of our Rotarians as possible will be able to participate in that district conference. So for now, you can save the date. More details will be provided in the coming months in terms of the actual registration process for that. But for now, June 23rd through 25th, that's the Friday through Sunday, and we'll be hosting Rotarians from throughout the district right here in Flint. Incidentally, if you are interested in being part of the planning process, I'm sure George would not say no to anyone who wished to, to lend a hand. So if you've got any experience with event planning, any of that sort of thing, so that would be certainly a very welcome addition. There's another service opportunity, and this is for a club service. As many of you may be aware, being a club that's got more than 100 years under our belt, we have a lot of archival material. For many years, Staff Furniture has been kind enough to let us store much of that at their premises. We're in the process now of sorting through that and trying to determine what doesn't make sense to hang on to, what might we dispose of, and that sort of thing. Gene Dennis is leading up that effort, but he would really appreciate it if we could have a couple folks join him for a few hours in order to sort through some of that material. It's a really good opportunity if you have an interest in club history to be able to learn more about it by actually working with him on it. And also it's just the sort of thing that's always a little bit cheerier to do if you've got somebody to do it with. So he's looking at Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday afternoons next week as potential time to do that. If you think you might be interested, then please reach out to Gene and let him know. And I want to say a special thank you to Fred Hines. I know he's not here today, but he was wonderful in putting together this Firebirds outing for us. I had a terrific time going, and I think everybody who went really had a good time too. It's the sort of thing that we want to be able to do more of. So it was a Firebirds game this time. Maybe next time it'll be something different. But it was a great way to spend some time with each other. And again, thank you for everybody who came out, as well as to Fred for his special efforts to help organize that. And now it's my pleasure to welcome up one of our Rotarians who is a Paul Harris Fellow, not for the first time. The Paul Harris Fellowship, as you know, is named for Paul Harris, who founded Rotary with 3 business partners in Chicago in 1905. This fellowship was established in his honor in 1957, and it acknowledges appreciation for a contribution of $1,000 or more to the Rotary Foundation, which supports international humanitarian and educational programs. These programs include an array of projects, everything from maternal infant health to various peace and understanding initiatives. And so this is something that our club has been involved with, things like international projects with the Haiti Water Project. But it's something that we also as Rotarians are part of because of the contributions that we make to the Rotary Foundation. These programs have the impact of providing food, water, shelter to millions of people around the globe every single year. And those activities are implemented and funded by Rotarians. We've moved closer today to a more peaceful world because of the efforts of one of our Rotarians who has achieved that $1,000 milestone, not for the first time. In fact, I believe it's a Paul Harris Fellow +3. And that person is Jim Richardson. So Jim makes his way up here. The impact of this gift is to help allay suffering, improve living conditions, and provide educational opportunities for people throughout the globe. Therefore, my distinct pleasure to present to you this pin as a symbol of your actions and the selflessness with which you contribute towards the Rotary International Foundation.
Thank you very
much.
Thank you all very much. Jane and I are happy to be able to support the international efforts of the Rotary and encourage each and every one of you to do the same because of the great work that it does. Thank you.
I love the fact that we're able to do so many of these. And just so it's one of those things that, I'm not a person who's probably going to be able to give $1,000 all at once, but if I give, what I can along the way, over time it adds eventually. Every little bit counts. So I did want to share some health and welfare updates. I mentioned earlier that Fred Hines is able to be here today. He did ask me to share his regrets with the club. He is volunteering right now to be a bit of a human pincushion. It's providing an opportunity for medical professionals to gain a little bit more hands-on practice. He's having a procedure and hopes to be back with us very soon. I also want to share some updates to Kelly, or Martinez now, as she's known. She hasn't been able to be here for several months, but she sends her well wishes. She thinks of us often. She's had a series of neck surgeries, and she's expecting to have hopefully one final one next month. So please do keep her in your thoughts. If you want to reach out to her, just let her know you're thinking of her. And then also want to let you know that Kathy Saunders, she's had some difficulties over the past year or two. Her husband has now recently been diagnosed with a very aggressive form of cancer. And so she's having a understandably fun time right now. So again, if you'd like to reach out to Kathy, send her a card, let her know that you're wishing her well. I'm sure she would appreciate that. Is there anybody else who has any health or welfare updates to share? Okay. But hopefully we'll all remain as well and healthy as we can be. I know this time of year is a time where a lot of folks are coming down with a lot of things. So take your vitamin C, get the flu shot, do whatever we can to try to keep healthy and well. It looks like we've got certainly several guests here in person today. So I would ask that if you have brought a guest, would you please stand and introduce them?
Like to introduce my wife. I'd like to introduce my stepson and co-worker.
I'll share that my husband, Craig Coney, is with us again.
Glad to have you. right, and for folks on Zoom, I don't know that we have any guests there, but if I'm incorrect, by all means, please, feel free to introduce them. All right. So we then, let's bring up Mike Chafee, who is filling in for Fred with the 50/50.
It's legit this week. We have the mayor draw.
All right, the third prize, 82333.
Having money.
All right, a crinkly one here, 82380.
Did you say 82380?
I did.
Sheldon, thank you ever so much.
Not putting the back page today, but for all the cash here.
It's not mine.
82326.
All right.
All right. I would be remiss if I just, I'd be remiss if I didn't also acknowledge another guest. We have Al Tucker here, who is our assistant governor for the district. So welcome, Al. We do have another special guest. As I mentioned earlier, that we have a practice of always welcoming the mayor, but especially the first meeting after the election. So in a second, I'm going to invite up Mr. Sheldon Neely to give us a couple of quick words. I will also note that he will be returning to us in February, that we traditionally do a series of programs focused on governance at the various local, county, state, and federal levels. And so he's agreed to participate in that once again. So we'll have a much fuller overview in the future. But I also want to acknowledge that we have Tommy Johnson from the mayor's office, who is here today as a special guest. Welcome. Mr. Mayor, welcome.
Good afternoon. Another great day that God has brought us together, and I thank you guys for continuing to open up the doors and allow me to visit. But one day I would like to be a Rotarian when I grow up. You know, one of the things that we talk about, I'm not going to before you, but I am going to come back. You know, I do want to compliment that picture. I love Photoshop. That looks really good up there. You know, but definitely as we move forward as a community, you know, we have some really fantastic work, and I'm so excited about the future. As Rob said in this presentation, in encouraging words, past, present, you know, future. The future is in front of us all. And we all have a responsibility. Rotarians have been in this community for more than a century, doing great work. And I'm going to ask you guys to continue to do that great work in a more robust way. I'm going to encourage you guys, the ambassadors of hope in this community. As I go forth, if you have not seen the State of the City address, which I had a couple of weeks ago, go to our website. It's there. It's about 40 minutes. And I talked about where we're going and the plan and the vision in which we're moving forward. But we need help. We need ambassadors because we need writing our narrative. We're not victims. We are victims. And Rotarians, you have been here fighting along the way, from the past to the present to our future. So we gotta have the greatest conversations around what we need to do. 33 units of government inside of Dixie County, working together in conjunction to lift the quality of life of everyone. We're doing just that. We have some exciting days ahead of us, some very exciting days and some great work. We have all the elements and all the ingredients to make, you know, the recipe of success. We have it. So I need your help. So I know we gather and we come here on Fridays, have a great lunch, listen to some great people, but definitely work is in the community. Rewriting our narrative. We've been in the world's eye. We are a great community, but we need to change the way that the world views the city of Flint and Genesee County. So with that, you know, I know you got a great person, Judge Beagle, coming up here to talk, and he has a great story about all the years of success, including the key to the city in which I gave him. one of the highlights, I'm sure. But definitely, if we move forward to the next 4 years, working together in conjunction and partnership, white, black, rich, or Republican, or Democrat, we have work to do. And you now have been anointed as ambassadors of God. So thank you guys. God bless you.
Thank you very much, Mayor Neely. And we look forward to having you back next month.
Yes, sir.
All right. So. In some respects, Mayor Neely almost served to introduce our guest speaker today. But I will offer the opportunity to Ms. Lynetta Coney if she would like to add to that introduction.
And add I will, because we all lovingly know the Honorable Judge Duncan Beagle. And Mayor, as you were saying about, and of course, Rob, about the past, the present, and the future, I keep this little note in my phone, and it says, I am not afraid of tomorrow. I have seen yesterday, and I love today. And so that's what we know, and I believe that Duncan Beagle has shown us. So you know him, but let me just share a little something more about it. Judge Beagle is a third-generation attorney. His father and grandfather each practiced law for over 50 years. Duncan graduated from the best high school in this city, Southwestern High School, when it was called. He received his undergraduate degree from Albion College and his law degree from the University of Detroit. He is in the Albion College Sports Hall of Fame. And as Craig tells me, and Craig has a great opportunity to work in his sport upon his first job. And there's many, many stories that can be told about Duncan's athletic prowess and many records that he can go back and look at. Now, in December of 1990, Duncan was stricken with a disease called transverse myelitis, which left him unable to walk. 5 months later, he resoundingly rose to the occasion, and he was appointed to the circuit court bench by Governor John England. In September of that same year, he married Dana. Duncan, as I indicated, is an avid sports fan and serves on the board of many local groups and organizations. Now, after serving the past 3 years as the chief judge of the circuit court, he retired on December 31st. So now join me as we listen to and reflect on the many years that Judge Beagle presided in our court system. And let's give him a resounding applause for his work and who he is as an individual. Duncan.
Madam President and Mayor Neely, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Before we go to retirement parties, I'd rather go there. I don't think I'm nearly as good as you could be. I know better. Also, we're glad to see our good friend Phil Fox back here today. My task over the next couple of months will see if we can't bring first water into our Rotary. But in all seriousness, I really want to thank this club for all the support you've given me over the past year. It's been a rather challenging one, and I had some illness, but through the thoughts and prayers and cards and phone calls, I can't say I'm still standing, but I'm still sitting. Look, I don't want this to be overly serious. Maybe I'll cover the retirement, but the truth being said, I didn't retire on my own. The Constitution of the 1960s indicated that judges would serve 6-year term. And when your 6-year term is up, boom, you're out the door. So I'd like to think that the 70s is different than the 70s back in the 60s, but that's the rules of the game. So as unhappy as I was, I went home and I did my life expectancy and I goes, that doesn't look good. And I said, you know, you really, when you get into your seventies, your health is probably not gonna get a whole lot better. So I said, maybe this is the time to leave and find some other things in life that you will enjoy and so forth. So there we are. Now, going back about 3 years ago, it was like January 2nd, somebody was knocking on my door, it was a day off. But the guy in the building was a representative of the Attorney General's office. And they had some request for a one-person grand jury. Two-person grand jury, nobody told me that's what this job was. So I did my homework and I signed the papers and it became a one-man grand jury regarding the water crisis. Since that issue is still pending, it would be inappropriate for me probably to say much beyond that. But that's the way it started almost my first day. Then I went to new judges school, I think in early February, learned a great deal, came back, and about 3 or 4 days later got summoned to the County Board of Commissioners of the Harris Auditorium. And the commissioners were talking about this COVID thing that was going around, what they were going to do. So finally, about a half hour later, they made a decision, they were going to shut the building down and send everybody home. Now, those of you that may have grown up in the Flint schools know that they don't close the schools down with 10 or 12 inches of snow. I said to myself, this thing must be more serious than I thought. Well, it was not fun for anybody. Certainly with our profession, Susan Philbot knows this. We went through some struggling times because as more and more people were committing crimes and going into jail, our docket wasn't moving for a long, long period of time. There was much we could do. So we struggled through that. I look back and I don't remember going to new judges school telling me what we're supposed to do there. But that's just the way it was. It was a struggle for not only me, all of you that work in your given profession, and we move forward. We're still catching up on much of our docket after that period of time. But a couple other things I just want to mention. Changes that have happened maybe since I started and what's going on right now. By the way, the other thing as a result of that is effective this week, we got 2 new judges. And we've got a third one that'll be coming because Judge Dean has gone to the federal court and waiting for the governor to make that particular appointment. Now, some significant changes as I look back, that some of you may have noticed, maybe you didn't. I think Mothers Against Drunk Drivers, certainly over the last 20+ years, have really changed the rules as it relates to drunk driving. And I give that group a lot of credit for bringing the attention of everyone as to how serious drinking and driving is. A few other ones within the profession. Susan does a lot of work in this area, but they created a family division. Most of what we did with family cases, divorce, and neglect petitions, that sort of thing, was under the umbrella of pretty much the circuit and, the criminal division and the civil division. I think because of changes in lifestyle, we felt that perhaps they should give more attention to those kinds of things. Another one was victim rights. Some of you may remember this. I don't know all the details, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there was a gentleman that was killed outside of a convenience store, I think over in the Jersey school district. And his wife decided she was going to take this issue on, and she was going to make sure that the victims of crime had more rights and so forth. So she became almost like a one-person crusade to convince the legislature that there should be more rights for victims, such as notice and being able to speak, giving written statements, and that sort of thing. Sentencing guidelines within the criminal area. It was totally discretionary with a judge. So you committed an armed robbery on one end of town, as opposed to the other, and your backgrounds were similar. You never knew what the judge was going to be. It might be 2 years, it might be 10 years depending on the offense. And that's made a very significant difference in the genetic testing. I could probably spend an hour talking about genetic testing, but let me tell you what. Let me give you one example. When I started out, paternity cases came to talk at the courthouse if there was a trial going on. Because in deciding paternity, oftentimes they'd have a jury trial. So the word would go out to the court, hey, Judge Jones got a paternity trial. Oh, really? Yeah. So people would get down there, they bring the baby in and they show the baby to the jury and the jury be watching. How they treat look, I'm serious. Here we come out. But so genetic testing is not made as much fun, but obviously it's a little bit more accurate to put people trying to. See, the biggest thing though, over the last several years, we've heard about this, has been specialized courts. It probably began with drug courts throughout the country. Genesee County took a long, hard look at it. We now have 4 specialized drug courts within our court system. One is pretty much the big one, felony drug court. Judge Godola's got a juvenile drug court. I had what we call family drug court. I had one of those, and then one of the district judges has one for repeat offenders for drunk driving and that sort of thing. So it's made a big difference. Obviously, the focus is to give more attention to those kinds of areas that sometimes either dominate the court with numbers or because of some of the issues that are going on. Oftentimes I get asked about different cases. I think back to one that when I was a lawyer, just before I became a judge, but I got appointed to represent a young man who was only about 17 and killed 3 people in one night. Talk about a bad night. Anyways, was not a bad human being. Was attending Goodrich at the time. Was going to school. Was a senior, about ready to graduate. New Year's Eve, he got at some party. He was drinking, smoking dope, and one thing led to another, and he got into some shouting matches and so forth. And when he left, he had driven there with somebody else, so he went running, somehow hitchhiked to a bar not too far from here, and he called his dad, and his dad took him home, and all the way home, yelled and screamed, you know, all you do is cause trouble for me, and so on and so forth. Gets home, and I think the young man just was so frustrated between drinking and smoking, and his relationship had gone downhill with his dad. He grabbed a shotgun out of his closet, went over and shot and killed his dad's fiance, and then he drove over to the Lapeer area where he had a girlfriend. He knocked on the door, and she wouldn't come, and he kept knocking, and finally she got scared, ran out, they ran about 100 yards, and he shot her in the back. And as any of you folks know, you shoot an animal like a deer out in the field and you know it's in pain, what do you do then, you hunters? You finish it off, and that's what he did. He pulled her off and shot her in the back. And so I'll tell you what, needless to say, it presented a hell of a challenge. But, you know, oftentimes you'll ask people, well, how can you represent those bad people or those guilty people? Well, as lawyers, we're trained to do our job. And, you know, that's the beauty of our system. We presume to be innocent. And we'll have to see how this one case coming out of Utah. I think the man went to Washington State, was getting all this attention. All right, we're going to have to sit back and be fair-minded as much as we can. Probably 90% of the country's already got him convicted. I understand that. But in our business, it's a little bit different. The interesting thing about that particular case is once I got to talking to this, and I realized he was pretty darn articulate. He kind of would be like a Bonzi type guy, you know, he just like joking and so forth. But got to know him real well. While he was in the county jail, he actually got his high school diploma. And so I gave him credit for that. Long story short, again, I was able to get it down to 2nd-degree murder. And I'm not sure why, because if ever there was a 1st-degree murder, it was the one that, the one out in the field, the young lady. So he got, I think it was 25 or 30 years in the Lapeer County judge. And I'm not sure, I know he was doing real well in prison and lost the track of him. One case, that was tried to be generous. I'm not going to mention the names or too much about it, but it's still feeling after all these years. Because there was a couple that was out collecting rent in a house on the northwest area of Flint. And the young man was about 20 years old and was working. I don't think he had much of a previous record as I recall. And he knew they were there to collect some rent. He didn't have any money. His parents weren't there at the time. And so it was winter time, and the male individual who was there, the victim, had started reaching in his pocket to do something. And the young man thought that he was for a gun, so he shot him. So the guy's wife, she freaks out, obviously, and she's looking around for a place to run. And the first door she sees, unfortunately, went down to the basement. Goes down in the basement, pulls out a gun again and shoots her. Just a terrible, terrible case. Now, he went to the jury one time, that's what I was a judge, and it became a hung jury. Tried to make it a black and white issue. I really didn't think it was a black and white issue, even though the whites were, the people were reflecting on that, the young man in black. Never really came into the trial as being black and white. Nevertheless, hung jury goes up to SAG. So I knew both of the attorneys, we lawyers, we went through all the law sports, play softball, and things like that. So this particular assistant prosecutor I knew very well, because we were on the same team together. Wasn't a reason for me to call him, so we go up there, and he doesn't like the way the jury selection going some of my rulings. It didn't shock me that there was a kind of order. Well, it never was. And there was a lot of media attention. I have a long, narrow courtroom, and there was a bunch of media there right at the beginning of the case. And so he got frustrated, threw his arms up in the air and goes, that's it, I quit. I'm thinking about it. I go, well, we're gonna take about a 10-15-minute recess right now. One of the guys from the TV station came up and goes, hey, Judge, did you just say I quit? I'll give myself credit for thinking quickly. No, he didn't say I quit. He said, I gotta go take an SHIT. And so I got the heck out of it. There's no reason to stick around and answer any more questions. So the first chair was a young lady, pretty young lady, only been out of law school, I think about a year. So she's what we call second chair there to help him out and write him a note and that sort of thing. So I saw her in the hallway. I go, you better get him up back in the courtroom in about 10 minutes, or you're second chair, you're taking over. She turned about 3 shades of red, like, oh my God. So I called up his supervisor back in Flint. And so I'm going, he goes, yeah, hey, Judge, how you doing? I go, Bob, you got a problem. He goes, what's that? So I said, Dan quit. He goes, quit? He can't quit? I go, I know he can't quit. Why do you think I'm calling him? So somehow they were able to reach out to each other, and he came back and of course he tried to apologize, but I said, we'll deal with that after the trial's over. Once again, long story short, it took about 20 minutes for the jury to come back and found me guilty of first-degree murder, which was probably a proper verdict. But that's one I won't forget. So anyways, as I think about that, some of the fun things I enjoy doing on occasion, if it's the appropriate thing to do, is having a little bit of fun in the courtroom. And some of our responsibilities is to arraign people who are picked up on bench warrants for non-payment of child support and so forth. So if you can have a little fun with them without being disrespectful, it's okay. So anyways, we're going through the line. There's about 6 of them on this particular day. And we're going through the line. The guy says, hey, Jeff. He's going, man, don't you remember me? He goes, I don't think so. I used to be the bearer at my college. He goes, and if you were the bearer at my college, how would I have recognized you? Oh, yeah. Well, then he volunteered with the guy before him. He goes, my buddy over here in the left. He goes, he's a hell of a rat. Oh, really? I show him a notepad and so forth, and I go, I tell you what, as long as you clean it up and don't do anything ridiculous, I said, I'll let you come up afterwards. What's your rat? So he's sitting over there in the corner, writing his notes, and I'm praying. So we go through the other guys, and finally I said, all right, you got something for me? So yeah. I had to write this down to remember. Sitting in jail, ain't got no bail, probably won't get any mail, all I do is fail. They took me to 15 minutes. That was very well done. Everybody in the audience, was there to love me, just clapping and everything. I had a young man, this was probably about a year ago, and it was probably important. Remember the shooting out of Beecher High School where the young person shot and killed young lady. Well, it was a spin-off from that particular case, and we'll get into the details, but it was a crowded courtroom, some of the media people were there as well. And so we had a couple of arraignments of juveniles. So the first one comes up, he's about 15, 16. I go, "Are you back here again? I can't believe it." I said, "Bad Memphis stole a car and got shot, and so forth." So finally comes up, and we're advising him of his rights and so forth. He finally admits to violating his probation. And I go, "So I gotta learn a little bit more about you." I said, what are your interests? You know, what's happening that we can get you motivated and stay out of jail and so forth? We goes, I like playing basketball and like video games. Oh, video games. Ah, that's cool. I said, "What video games you like?" He goes, and his mother's sitting there. Keep in mind that he was on probation for stealing your car. Without missing a beat, let me know where this may be going. I goes, "What's your favorite video game?" "Grand Theft Auto." His mom is going like this. Everybody in the audience wants to laugh out loud. I'm doing like this, and he's looking around like, "What? Why are you laughing?" One thing I had enjoyed doing was develop a new program having to do with paternity cases. It was interesting, if we don't do paternity cases, like I said, we used to. So we started this special program we called the DAP. And I knew that there were, across the country, probably the average was about 20%, that when you did the genetic testing, the individual that the mother had named turned out not to be the father. So I knew it was more than about 20% due to all the default judgments that we get. So we do that, and it comes in one day, and we started out testing people as quickly as we found out, because I never thought there were that many deadbeat dads out there. We've got a bad system, Menetta's husband knows this, where it takes forever to get an order entered just for custody, parenting time, and child support. I won't even explain the process. But after a year and a half, as many of you might expect, some of these paternity cases are one night stand, a month, or they just don't like each other anymore, whatever. So all of a sudden, we go through about 200 cases, and we found out, as I said, that it takes about a year and a half to get an order after it's and this is non-support cases where people can't afford an attorney. So then we started doing the testing, and we found out that when the genetic testing is done, about 34% of the time, it ain't the guy that the woman pointed the finger at. Now, does anybody want to volunteer some reasons, just thinking to yourself, like, why would there be 34%? Money? You have more money to work? Money. Nobody else? Well, Ms. Gopal, what else would come to mind that could be going on there?
I don't want the fellow that actually is father to do that.
Yes, that's right. We found out, and I don't think anybody's shocked by this, but there's probably some women out there, unfortunately, that have had sexual relations with more than one man, maybe two, maybe three, maybe four. And I think any woman in that position probably goes through the two or three that you may know and go, he's fun, but he beat that lot of me one night. I ain't naming that guy. Now, Joe, he's kind of boring, but I don't know. He might be okay. There's probably other significant factors. I'm just thinking out loud. We were talking about a case the other day where a couple came in, nice looking young couple, been dating about 6 months. And he got some advice, the assumed father, that he wants to get a genetic test. So they came in together, they were holding hands and so forth. And I think the individual at the front of the court said, "Well, I'm really sorry to tell you this, but you're not the father." The guy broke down crying, swung the doors, and left the building. And that's the last time she saw him. It didn't happen that again one time, for different background of the case that said, "Well, Jim, I'm sorry, but the testing came back and you're not the father." To which the woman looked at the worker and said, "Am I the mother?" Things have changed over time. I think things like the dam, like, what the current area, what it is now. And I thought it was time for a change, so when the chief judge came to a meeting one day, he said, all right, that's the new family division across the state. And I talked to our counterpart in probate court, and he said the court probate circuit is gonna have 2 volunteers, 2 judges, are gonna go to that. Who would like to go? And my friend Mr. I know this, but not everybody wants to practice law in the family area or be a judge in the family division. So I said, we're real funny guys, I know you're hiding in the table. But we're gonna come back next week and nobody does it and I'll appoint somebody. So I said to myself, well, I'm the only one volunteer, I don't like it. I said, we got to come back to later. Yeah, let me go to the other division. So I went back the next week, nobody else volunteered. So I finally said, I'll try. So my shock is I sit here today, I'm still shocked that I went through 25 years of the family. But I think I learned that you've got to leave that work there and you got to be able to go home. You can't think about it. Every day I drive home, there's one thing to do. And think about it today, and you're dealing with high volume these days, turn cases over. Is did I treat everybody fair? Because at the end of the day, people will get out to the fight. I had one of my fellow judges gave me this plaque. Right near this is being sworn in. And he said, qualities of the judge by Socrates. Number 1, to hear courteously. Number 2, to answer wisely. Number 3, to consider, hear courteously, answer wisely, consider something else. Sorry, and bottom line, to decide impartial. And put that plaque right on the wall, going into the courtroom every day. And I would look at it because, sometimes we can get too caught up in wearing the black robe. You might forget it. So I'm having a bad day, I would go back to that plaque and I go, ooh, then here courteously, there's a couple slip ups. But anyway, I hope as I reflect back on the lawyers and kings, general civil and my fellow workers, to the best of my ability, right, out of the court. It's been a great ride. Like I said, I've got a lot of attention, which probably was not deserved. But I've worked every minute of it, and I've certainly been enjoying being part of this club. Sometimes talking about your favorite stories, the importance. But thank you very much. If you got any questions, I'd be more than happy to. Thank you.
All right, we have some questions. So, yeah, go ahead.
I just want to make a statement. Craig said that he can attest that you actually lived up to that. He witnessed it having worked there. Plus the fact that I negated to say that you not only are known for what you did on the bench, but with your athletic prowess. You had a no-hitter, and there's some other things that you did that I thought you were going to talk about, but you didn't. But anyway, appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Do you ever have any problem with the media? I don't know. Ever since out my retirement, you and I have spoken very well. Generally speaking, you can't talk about a pending case before you. I found out as an administrator, the chief judge, I started getting phone calls all the time. And of course, I wasn't the only person you were talking to. But not really. I found out, I think you and many other media people around town, if you can't say something, just tell them. Oftentimes, as many of you know, you've got to be able to trust the other individual. And if you've developed a good relationship, you can say, now off the record, I can tell you A, B, and C. D and E, I can't tell you about. And because we don't have anybody from the Flint Journal covering the courthouse anymore. So when somebody calls you, you don't really know them. But I've always known you and most of the people over Channel 12, the other TV station. That's been a problem. Yeah. Yes, sir.
One, I can
test because Mr. Browse, my first game in Flint, we had a chance to play softball together. And I was in awe of this guy catching the ball. He did 3 center fielders. What's been your favorite civic project? I'm sorry, what's been your favorite civic project? Well, I'll tell you what, nobody will be surprised that nobody, but we'll probably have which gave it. When the city ran out of money, I sent a proposed petition, I drafted a petition, we got about 300 signatures, and I took it to Mayor Stanley at the time. But what do you think we ought to do? I said, well, that's up to you. 2 days later, get appointed the chairman of the council.
What the hell is that? If anybody found that,
Became a lady as well. I grew up, I don't like to say too much about it, because my brother passed away when I was a junior in high school. It became an education at the university level. I fished there nowhere is. And I'll tell you what, that got me through that period, and ever since then, I just gave them things from second home. But it was a test, I'll tell you, for a long period of time. I can't remember how many years, 8 to 10 years. Finally got to the point where you just knew there wasn't any money left. There's no money left. And so I'm not sure what happened behind the scenes, but I do believe that Bill White and President of Kettering University now have Copeland started talking. All of a sudden, not talking about a little bit of a donation, significantly. And I think it pleased me even more. How many people really got on board to make sure they kept that facility open because of its history. And I saw Bill White in the stadium when I was all by himself, and they asked me to announce something. And to this day, I'm mad that I didn't recognize Bill White. That was his style. But I just said, this man deserves some recognition. But I have to say, the event became a label as well. And obviously, many other ones that I've enjoyed doing, I've got contact with the Detroit Tigers. We'll get back to this year. Is we took about 200-300 kids that were able to get buses. The Tigers took care of it, and watching those kids walk into a big time facility was just unbelievable. I know an umpire that for one time it looked like it was going to be about a 15-20 minute break. So the only way they could get the kids' attention was putting them out on the screen, billboard at much center field. I've never seen such crazy dancing in all my life. All these inner city kids decided that, oh, the ball game, it's time. But I enjoyed it.
Say, my mom couldn't be here today, but I can remember she was a school social worker. And so I can remember her talking about the truancy court and what a phenomenal thing that was, and really a tool in helping kids get on the right path. So I wanted to share that. But it also then made me kind of curious. You're 20 plus years working with the family division. As you reflect back on that, what strikes you? Like, here's some of the key ingredients that when a community is able to try to provide this kind of support that really, in your mind, makes the biggest sort of difference in which direction kids on that path are going.
You know, it kind of goes back to what I said before. When I took the family before, oh, give or take, if we look at the court docket, probably maybe 10% were fraternity cases, 90% were going to the system as part of a divorce. Right now, if I look at the figures, I think it's 3-4 years ago, there are more kids coming into the court system without the benefit of married parents than there are the other way. All of that creates some interesting issues. Part of what I just said about it's a fraternity where dads are not involved like they should be. We've got a lot of single mothers that are out there struggling to make a living. And so that depends on all of us to step up to the plate. That's where specialized sports come into play. I didn't mention truancy court, but I came to really enjoy that sort of thing. I used to tell them there were a couple people I knew that had some favorite channels, so it's private, but you really do well, I'll let you sing in Harvard. I'll tell you what, we had another dummy Shania Twain. No doubt about it. She was a pretty girl, and about every other week, you began to sing this week. So I laid up this particular young lady. I ran into his dad and public gathering. Yeah, you got it. Okay. I said, so she, oh, no, what? Now she's married with 3 kids. But, you know what? When you create a talent like that, and sometimes I would say, well, she's drawing, showing them around, and back a couple of weeks, and one looked like something done like a kindergarten kid. Every once in a while, you'll find some unbelievable, perfect sketch of that 51st art. They may not like the traditional schooling, but they got some talent. So, yeah, I'd have to say that one.
And it's really true. I don't think Carmen, you were very one time when you were in the FDA, one
Sure.
you have to tell me.
Well, listen, anybody that knows of anyone that's been through the board, we're gonna, people argue about the most crazy things, am I right? So it became an argument, and they had 3 dogs, and so each had one, they couldn't decide what to do with the third one. So it's from the judge, we went through the factors of the Child Custody Act. Handle it. And, you know, it sounds funny, but couldn't think of anything else. What are you gonna do? I'll tell you what, who the hell is mother? We haven't decided, but you gotta keep your sense of humor in this business.
I was, I've listened, you know, I've known you for years. I've listened to your stories. I've had you on radio and TV. We talk about different things. You have an interesting angle and insight on these things that I think are kind of, they're fun and they're elucidating as well. They open up things. Are you going to write a book? Write a book. Get somebody to sit down and tell your stories, organize it. I think you're going to sell it. If not, at least we'll buy it.
You know, bottom line is that I really try to do my best to be respectful to people. And if you're gonna have a little fun, you gotta be very careful as to where the line is drawn, because I don't want somebody to leave. You know, they may not like my decision, but I want, everybody should look and say, can't believe that guy made that decision, but he was at least nice and let me tell my story. What else can you do? Thanks, folks. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you so much. You know, probably one of the most engaging, memorable speeches we've had, certainly yet this year, right? And so, of course, you know that we always give a recognition for special speaker. So a donation will be made in relation to the Polio Plus, but I hope that, you know, beyond that token, that you feel and appreciate and absorb just the love and that everybody in this room has for you. You know, I think I will say that, you know, you're the person I look up to tremendously, and I see that reflected in the faces all around. Thank you for being here.
Right.
I also want to say thank you for everybody who stepped forward today. Renata, for your efforts to organize the presentation, and then to the speaker, for Rob, your inspirational message, and also coordinating the mayor's comment today as a special guest. Elizabeth coming for the bulletin note. Thank you so much for folks who stepped in with Fred's absence today, so Mike with the raffle, and also you know, Don, you were here early to help with the setup, so thank you for that. I will also make a very quick mention. Rob Bennett had mentioned to me just a little bit earlier that there may be a potential service opportunity. That one of the things that we've been trying to do with Rotary is be more engaged in getting back into service. So we've had a couple of service projects so far this year. It sounds like there may be an opportunity, not this Saturday, but the following one, having to do with helping install smoke detectors with the Red Cross in part of Flint. So I don't have all of the final details, but if you may be available a week from Saturday, would it be okay, Rob, to direct folks in your direction for right now? And then we'll also be sure to put details, next, just want to put that on your radar. And then, of course, next Friday is, I don't know if it's gonna be Dark Man Day, but it's gonna be Kersey Week. So, Kersey Street Week will be returning next week. That's always a fun one. And so it's another great occasion to come and to consider bringing a guest. So thanks again for being here today, and we'll see you next week. All right, thanks everybody on Zoom.
Bye now.
Bye.